Good evening, everybody. It's Beardychiels here. John Glenn, better known as Beardychiels on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Ravelry. And while I'm saying this, the information's on the screen somewhere. And of course, if you're looking for me, you can also find me on email, beardychiels@gmail.com. And if you're looking for my website, www.beardychiels.uk. Welcome to the podcast. It's been a couple of weeks since the last one, and it's been quite pleasant. I'm still in the position of podcasting from my garden, so I've had to wait for a sunny break in the day. It's late in the afternoon. I normally podcast in there in my conservatory, but at the moment that's where Janet's set up her home office because she's working from home during lockdown. So we're either here or we're in my comfy armchair, and I'd rather be out in the sunshine. I hope everybody's well, and I hope everybody's keeping healthy during the continued stay at home in Scotland and slight easing in other parts of the world. I hope it's running smoothly for you all. So, what have I been up to since I last spoke to you? Well, I've been knitting and knitting and knitting and knitting and more knitting and some child minding for the grandsons and some gardening. We've got some sunflowers, some carrots, some sweet peas, some cucumbers, some peas, all for the boys to try. And a couple of days ago a friend dropped in to ask a question dropped into the garden here to ask a knitting question. I answered the knitting question and she rewarded me by giving me about 4 kilos of freshly picked gooseberries, which I'm going to turn into gooseberry jam and some gooseberry fool, because I love the sour hit you get from gooseberries. Need to go and buy some extra sugar tomorrow to make the jam, mind you. What else have I been doing? So yeah, we had that. We had a lovely open air knitting lesson for one, sitting here, and it was great fun. Absolutely wonderful fun. She brought her daughter with her, and while her daughter and their Labrador puppy were running around the garden, Sarah had been in with Ian, and Ian, who is petrified of dogs, got used to this puppy and was playing happily with it, feeding it from his hand. Really come out of his shell. For a kid who was petrified of dogs, he's now been face to face with 3 different dogs in just over a week, and he's coped beautifully with all of them. But then again, he has to this week, because he is being big and he is being brave, because this week we got the news that he's going to be a big brother. My daughter is expecting a second child, 11 years between them. She and her new partner are absolutely delighted, and she's due in January, so between now and January there's some non-standard Beardychiels design knitting having to happen, and it's because I'll be on a pile of baby stuff, and it's a pleasure to be doing things like that again. Absolutely wonderful fun. But what have I been doing in the meantime? Well, I've got a couple of works in progress with me. I've got a couple of finished objects, and I've got photographs of finished objects for you, because some of them had to be finished and sent away last week. So, where will we start? Works in progress? Work in progress number 1. A massive ball, central heating's just kicked in the background, so I'll apologise for that, of cotton. This is from last year's Beardychiels Roads retreat, when I picked up 3 200-gram skeins of cotton, one in scarlet, one in orange, and one in pale lemon yellow. And I decided to have some fun with them and use them for this project. Some of you, when you see it, may automatically recognise it. Any takers? It's Peyton's pattern 8008. I think it's 8080 8008. Circular feathered and fan shawl, and I decided I'd start with the scarlet and fade out like a sunrise. Just a cotton working shawl for this baby when it arrives. There are a pile of other shawls in the family, and it's been a while since I knitted one, and the person who was in the other day had actually asked for help to help her get through knitting her first ever baby shawl. So I said, right, I'll do this one with you, bit by bit. We'll do the centres over the weekend, we'll get the feather and fan put on. The other thing is, because I'm being a complete pain in using this sort of 2-ply cotton on 4.5mm needles, which doesn't match the pattern at all, I'm going to have to increase the number of increases in the centre section. Instead of finishing on 35 stitches, I'm going to have to go up and finish on 44 stitches, because the feather and fan pattern is an 18 stitch pattern, and of course there are 8 sections in that central section, so finding a multiple of 8 that's also a multiple of 18, I have to end up in 44 stitches. But that's okay, I can live with that, it'll be absolutely fine. It's 44, 45, 8 45s, 2 45s is 45, 44 stitches and 8 loops. So I'm looking forward to that. As I say, started at scarlet, ran some scarlet and orange alternate rows. Now the orange will take me all the way out until just before I reach the feather and fan. Then some alternate rows to bring in the yellow, and that'll go on nicely. So I've really enjoyed that. I'm still working on a pair of long mohair kilt hole type socks. I've left those indoors, didn't bother bringing those out, but I did cast on a couple of weeks ago a Fair Isle sweater vest, as the Americans call them, tank tops as they're known in the UK, for myself, and this is where it has gotten to, he says, giving it a shake out. I know that rib's curling up at the bottom, but hey, we'll worry about that later. It's not the end of the world. But to get it in my size, it takes a bit of work, so there we go. That's how it's looking at the moment. I'm absolutely delighted with it. I'm at the stage now where I'm about 3 rows short of marking the centre of the neckline and the underarms, which I'm just going to continue to knit, keep the pattern going, and I'll steek the arms and I'll steek the v-neck, which will be fun. I've never steeked a v-neck before. I mean, I've done straight things up the middle of a cardigan, put in a zip, so it'll be a wee bit different doing something on the angle. That'll be fine. What did we have in terms of finished objects? Well, there's a few, as I said, but I'm going to take a break here because the last couple of the last videos that I made, I slipped in a chat section just because I could. Beardychiels chat, Beardychiels blethers, Beardychiels chats, chat to Beardychiel. And if you remember, I started doing that, and I've recorded another couple of those, so I thought it would be nice to put one in here. And because it's that time when some bookings for spaces at the Truly Hooked Podcasters Lounge, virtual Podcasters Lounge, for Perth Festival of Yarn on the 12th and 13th of September is coming up. I messaged Eva Christie, the director of Perth Festival of Yarn, and said to her, do you want to come and do a Zoom interview with me and talk to me about your festival plans and what you've been doing to fill in time? And she said, yeah, sure. So I'm going to hand you over to myself and to Eva, and I'll see you in about half an hour. Cheerio, bye. Hello Eva, how are you?
Hi John, yeah, I'm doing okay. I think I'm in day 86 of lockdown. Yeah, I think just like everybody else just now, good days, bad days, can't really plan anything, you just go in with the flow, waking up, Groundhog Day, go with the flow, let's just see where the day takes us and do what we can.
Eat, shop, knit, repeat.
Yeah, not a huge amount of knitting though, I'm going to be honest. I think initially the project that I was putting a lot of love into was my northeasterly blanket.
Oh yes.
Now putting in all those sorts of little scraps, I've been doing a fair amount of socks, secret pairs of socks for folks that I can give them as gifts once lockdown's over, because I don't have access to my local post office at the moment, it's too far away to get to. So that's a no-no. So actually cross-stitching.
Oh, wonderful. So what are you working on?
I was, until a couple of days ago, my embroidery hoop snapped.
Oh.
And now I've got that to sort out. But
oh, pretty.
This is what I've been working on. So I discovered that DMC have a lot of free patterns on the website. Well, I'm saying patterns, charts. I think they've got a few sort of macrame and a few sort of crochet things because they do crochet cotton. They've got all styles of embroidery and a whole catalogue of really sort of contemporary cross-stitch charts for free.
Oh,
this is yellow French roses. Just happen to have some pale blue fabric in my fabric stash up in my studio.
Oh, now that's nice.
I'm probably about a third of the way through it now, which is good. So I don't know what it's saying psychologically about my need to repeatedly stab something over and over again. But yeah, I've also read something quite interesting recently where it's saying the pandemic, no one's ever, in our lifetime anyway, been through something quite like this. It is very different from having a war-like conflict. It's just all of a sudden, overnight, globally, everyone just has to remain indoors.
Yeah, everyone's just stuck in the same boat.
And what a lot of people are doing are they're reading. They're reading more. They're going back to hobbies. Some people are exploring new things, and some people just aren't feeling physically able to do any of that stuff, and that's okay too. That's a completely normal response that some people are having. But when it comes to reading, a lot of people have been going back to the books of their childhood. It's that sense of comfort of what was normal, that comforted them in those previous times where they found their escapism. And I don't know if maybe psychologically there's a bit of that, because I was knitting and cross-stitching at about the same time, age sort of 7 or 8 years old. I went through a massive phase of cross-stitching and doing all the cards, and every Christmas family members would get cross-stitch cards from me after I left home at sort of 17, 18. And my mum's kept all the ones that I've kind of sent them and put them in wee frames. And these days I'm unable to get home at Christmas anyway, but she always takes those out. So I'm wondering maybe if there's just a psychological bit in the back of my head going, bring out the cross stitch, go back to that. But I'm finding that very therapeutic.
Oh, wonderful.
At the moment, and not doing so much knitting. Maybe it's just that the knitting side is so closely related with what I do for work.
Well, you did have your big blanket on the go.
I've done little bits and pieces, and initially, the first few weeks or so, but like 86, 87 days into a lockdown scenario, and it's like I'm evolving within this time that I have, and what I want to do. But I find that quite interesting, and it's been quite interesting as well, and inspiring to be on Instagram more than anything. And a lot of the knitters and things, and some of the virtual online knitting and crochet groups that I've kind of popped into, because I've popped in and visited a few just to have that company. They've been an amazing lifeline. But half the people there are doing cross stitch during those meetups. It's like, this is really interesting, just seeing kind of this. It feels like a resurgence, or maybe it's just always been there, but it's not been as visible. And there's been a whole sort of hashtag. If you search the hashtag Be Well and Stitch on Instagram, a lot of contemporary cross-stitch designers made patterns for free.
Yes.
Patterns for free. And yeah, so it's been lovely to kind of see that kind of coming to the fore. And that's where I've been finding I've wanted to go. I've wanted to stab things.
I'm glad I'm several hundred miles north then. Now, I mean, one of the big things, which obviously must be a nightmare for you at the moment, is having had to put out your post saying that Perth this year is going to have a completely different structure.
Yeah, I'm still coming to terms with that one. It's a huge part of my life. Each festival takes between 12 and 18 months to organise, and knowing that from the moment lockdown was announced that, you know, I think everyone just thought initially it'd just be 3 weeks, a month, and it'll all be over. And yeah, it's not. You know, as we saw everything unfolding from overseas, it's like, yeah, this is what we've got to come. And sadly, it's not looking likely. So not only then are you preparing sort of 12 to 18 months in advance, you're beginning to prepare plan B and plan C and plan H, and you're looking through every single scenario that you possibly can. And it's not just me. We were chatting a little bit about this before we started recording. It's all the infrastructure. You know, will my venue be allowed to be open and prepared and plenty of time for my event to be able to go ahead? Will all accommodation providers still be up and running and able to provide their services, because we're an international festival? At the time that I had to put out the announcement, I've kind of put it off to the last minute that I possibly reasonably could, because it kind of coincided with that our First Minister of Scotland's sort of address, because legally every 3 weeks she kind of has to update us as to what's happening. And we went into a further lockdown with, I think it was minimal change at that point. I think we were allowed to start seeing one family, or was it even at that point? I don't even know if it was at that point. I think it was just like a continuation, really. But at that point, that's the point I need to start applying for working visas.
Yes.
As well for some of our overseas guests, including Brooklyn Boy Knits Louis, who actually sadly he's had COVID-19. He's a hospital worker in New York, and he picked it up early days on there, was ill. Thankfully, as far as I'm aware, he wasn't hospitalised at any point, but he was really quite ill from it. You know, so you're looking at working visas, and it's like, okay, are anybody working in those government offices at the minute? Are tutors, some of our tutors, some of our vendors, some of our festival goers potentially looking at 14-day quarantine period coming into the UK, and the same when they go out again. Normally I champion, I'm very much an environmentalist at heart, and sustainability has always been one of our core values, and one of my personal core values. And we encourage travelling by public transport as much as you possibly can to the festival. That's not going to be a given because there's reduced services. Can I, in good conscience, ask people to spend potentially long times on public transport? And no, I can't. So we'd then be looking at additional car journeys, and we just do not have the parking infrastructure for major events.
No, and then since then we've had the recommendation from the First Minister that for leisure activities travel no more than 5 miles.
Yeah, it's it's difficult to know, and it's been difficult not to have that direction. And I understand that we're certain things, we just don't know what we're going to face. But I do honestly believe that, you know, our governments could turn around and go no mass gatherings until the end of the year. We're phase 4 on the route map. We'll be the very, very last to open. But I've been trying to do as much as I possibly can in the meantime. I've been joining webinars from Events Scotland, who work with Visit Scotland. I've been taking part in consultations, and it's scary. You know, we're all within that sector in sort of phase 4.
Mm-hmm.
Events are actually the hardest hit within tourism and hospitality, as you might expect, and our part is worth 3 billion to the Scottish economy. To kind of put it in perspective, the entire Edinburgh International Festivals, which take place, you know, near enough the whole length of August.
Yes.
Edinburgh each year, and they encompass the tattoo and, you know, the fringe festivals and comedy, and you've got the book festival and everything. They bring in about £330 million to the Scottish economy. That's a huge sum, and we've lost it. And you've got directors and companies and all things that are all parts of size within the events side of that tourism, and we are potentially looking at no income for an entire year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got our supply chains as well, which are our venues, our accommodation suppliers, our cafes and things that rely on our patrons, and they're coming through to visit, and they're there and they get some of that spend, and it's quite scary times. I've had moments, and I've got to say that the outpouring of love that I received initially when I put out those messages, and I sat on it for a couple of days, and I wasn't sleeping, and it's like, how's this going to be received? You know, I had to let all my vendors know and tutors know first, and then kind of put them in a restraining order to a point. When, look, please don't mention this even in closed Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups. Please don't talk about this until I've been able to get around as many of our key players as possible, because I found out that I'd lost paid work because I was supposed to be doing appearances at other events and things, and I found out from some of them within groups before their organisers have a chance to speak to me. So I've lost that revenue stream as well. And it doesn't feel good. So to get round everybody, to have those conversations, and I think everyone was expecting our announcement that we would have to evolve in some way. I don't like the word cancelled so much, because we're not cancelled. Hello, Janet.
Hello.
What did you forget?
Hello, love it, absolutely love it. So to go through that, and then just complete outpouring of love in comments in the social media, private messages, emails, and you're then getting that second wave coming through, and it's sometimes I'm just so close to the festival because I'm so invested in it and I'm so passionate about it. I don't quite realise just how much it means to other people.
Oh yes.
And then you're getting those messages and those anecdotes and things and the sharing, and there was a lot of crying. There was a lot of crying behind the scenes, because you're taking that away from people, and people rely, you know, tutors, vendors. The festivals are an important part of their income as well as the social aspect, and I still feel a duty of care to everyone. I'm going, this is out of my hands. This isn't my decision. This is a global pandemic. I can't do anything else than to say we can't physically gather.
No, we have to.
And I can't do any sort of socially distancing version. I've been through every single different version of scenario in my head. I was speaking to, for example, there's a big air show that takes place each year at Riyadh, and I'm very close to one member of the virtual Red Arrows team. So they sort of not parrot, but they watch everything and study meticulously what the actual virtual Red Arrows do, and then they recreate that virtually with simulations, and it's incredible the work that they do. So they do a lot of VR and things like that, and they talk about training, and they work with the RAF, alongside the RAF, and I think they've just announced today that there's going to be a virtual air show, and the virtual Red Arrows are going to be part of it, because they can't, I mean, you know, every single event in the UK and Europe and globally has just been cancelled, so they're doing that. But I've been talking with them about, you know, the VR, could we do personal shopping? Could we even just bring the vendors and you book in personal shopping slots? How could we do this? I literally went through every scenario I could, and it's just a physical festival just can't go ahead.
No.
And then you're left with, right, so what do we do? What do we do that's new and fresh? Because Perth's got this reputation of being different, of being innovative, of bringing those souls together. How do we do that? And how do we get everybody excited when one by one the physical shows are falling, and we're falling into a format of set up your booth at home, which isn't possible for everybody. Set up your booth at home, and here's some time on Instagram, and I just felt that wasn't right for Perth. So what we've done, or what we will be doing, is we're opening up a festival shop. So everyone who's supposed to be a vendor, who's kind of stuck through to this point, has been invited to sort of collaborate with us in a way to come up with 3 exclusive products per vendor to go into that festival shop, and there is a percentage part of it. So each purchase from those vendors not only helps us vendors, it helps the festival, because we've lost a lot of I've lost a lot of money in the infrastructure that was already there for this year that I will not get back. So I'm looking at a year without an income now, and who knows what future years will bring. And I need to be able to sustain the festival to bring that back for everyone as well. So festival shop, and that has been extremely well received by, I think vendors are quite enthused that it's something different.
Yes.
And a lot of people have, you know, festival exclusives anyway, and I went back through all the applications that we'd had, and massive number of the people that would apply this year said yes, that was something that they were planning things. So I thought, okay, well, it's not too far outside the realms of what we could do.
Yeah.
Let's bring that to the front. Let's just have a shop full of exclusives. The only place you can get them is in this festival shop for this weekend, the weekend of the festival. I've reached out to people that were on our cancellation lists, because obviously, you know, they didn't get into our show, but they were involved with other shows. They've seen that income gone as well, so I thought it'd be nice to invite them in.
And they can still have that virtual input.
Yeah, still be part of us. So we've reached out to kind of gather them in should they wish to. I have reached out to some of our friends that didn't apply this year, but that was because they were family weddings that obviously are being postponed now, and other sort of personal reasons why they wanted to be at Perth. They physically wanted to be there, and they just couldn't. So I've reached out to some of them, and I'm still continuing to do that. So that's exciting.
Yes.
So some of the lineups kind of changed. There are certain virtual things happening. So our keynote lecture will be recorded.
Wonderful.
We record that with Soraya Garcia, who's the editor of Below the Nets, and she's sometimes a contributor to Pom Pom magazine as well. So she'll still be delivering her keynote lecture. Haven't decided what platform we're going to use for that yet. Still need to kind of read into all the legalities of things as well, and to make it as accessible, so we've got to choose, you know, a platform that is as accessible as possible. But that will be, all these items will be monetized. So Soraya has obviously lost a lot of income too. So talks, there will still be a charge, but there will be, keynote lecture will be going ahead. Reached out to some of our tutors and such as well. So we will have, I can't announce exactly who they are and what's happening yet, but we will have an extended programme of talks and lectures and such, instead of the classes and other offerings that we were originally planning to bring. And what was really sort of amazing as well that when I put out that sort of, statement saying, look, we can't gather. We can't gather together in our normal way this year, but this is what we're going to do. There are some other sort of industry sort of key figures who read that, and within a couple of days, because of algorithms and things and personal life and such, and they got in touch with me and said, I'm so sorry to kind of read what's just happened. I've been planning to come. What can I do to help? Or could we do this?
So it's just the nature of this industry, isn't it?
Yeah, people are really rallying around together, and that's amazing to do that. We've all been hit in different ways. Excuse me, hay fever. It's hay fever season. And people really have sort of rallied around. So we're going to have additional talks and things that we'll announce in time. And the Truly Hooked, we're supposed to be sponsoring our lounge this year, where we have all our various sort of meetups and such. And we're going virtual with that. So we're going to have the Truly Hooked Zoom room lounge now, and we have various podcasters, not just homegrown, but international podcasters, some of which who are planning to join us. Who can't, but others who just couldn't because of sort of geographical distances and other claims on their income already for the year, will be popping in and out throughout the weekend. So that's exciting, because to me, Perth's always been about the community.
It is.
And bringing together. So how do we still have that? So the Zoom, I think the Zoom room, the Truly Hooked Zoom room lounge this year is going to be one of the sort of real key fixtures. That'll be free to kind of join in and pop in and socialise, and thinking about other ways that we can have interactive things. Not everyone likes to kind of come on and camera or talk and be seen, but they still want to be part of something. And I think in some ways this is just going to kind of strengthen us and make us stronger on an international level. We are an international festival, but not everyone's being able to travel to us this year. So I think being virtual will bring more people in together, and hopefully, when we are allowed to kind of safely open, hopefully that's next year, but we don't know what's going to happen with dipping back in at this point. I am aware of yarn shows that are supposed to be happening at the beginning of next year, and they've just held off everything until they know, which is quite scary. Give us something to look forward to. We will come together again. Perth is going to get through this. I think it'll be stronger.
I think it'll be amazing.
Our community will be much stronger, sort of coming out of this. And we will. It's going to be scary times, but I think, we're all creatives in our way. And I think when creatives are put under strain, you innovate. You find a way out of it, and you fight for what is important to you, what means most to you. And I think there's just been so much love for Perth from outside sources that it's one of the festivals that people do not want to see go by wayside because of something like this. So yeah, it's exciting in its ways. I've had to kind of take a wee bit of time out just to kind of synthesize and kind of grieve in a way for, I'm not going to see all these people.
Yes.
These things aren't going to happen as planned, but what do we do? How do we evolve? How do we change it? And I believe that we're offering something the other festivals aren't offering, or they're not promoting that this is what they're doing at this time in this format. And that's quite exciting to kind of see where we can go with that.
Yes.
What we can bring in, yeah.
Wonderful. That is exciting.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be exciting no matter what happens. I'm keeping my weekend free for whatever comes up.
I might have a little bit more energy this weekend.
The one thing that I'm going to have to force myself to do, though, we have a local tapas restaurant at Scrabster. So I'm going to have to order carry-out tapas to be delivered to the house, to pair it with some whiskies, to make up for the social event I'm not getting to.
Yeah, I mean that's the sad thing. I enjoy the social events surrounding Perth because it means that I actually get to enjoy just a little bit of the festival myself, because I don't get the chance to experience it, and it's going to be different this year because I'm going to be joining in on the Trilly Hooked Zoom Room Lounge. I'll be able to kind of get in and craft and talk to people when I don't get to do that because I'm working. But the social events, I do get to kind of let my hair down a little bit. I get dressed up for the gala dinner and the fashion show. And I'm still working, but I get the chance to sit down and actually eat and drink with people and have that. But yeah, the whiskey and the tapas evening with the Ballotta that we were jointly hosting with them, we'll bring that next year. That opportunity.
Or you might find a way of doing it virtually.
we could do, I don't know if that one would be quite the same, because we were having our vendors who were taking part had been invited to come up with samples. So we had the samples there to actually touch and to try on, and we've encouraged our vendors to knit samples from previous magazines and to have those there. So it was very much about showcasing those vendors. I think it'd be a very different format that was designed to be something really quite special, really quite intimate, bringing in kind of like the fusion. So we had Spanish tapas and the Scottish whiskies. So next year I absolutely want to have that. It was a move away from the gin, which we all loved, and kind of in a way, the whiskey, the gin flights have become quite iconic. I think it's something that everyone was looking forward to, and that was the real kickstart. So maybe we'll do something on the evening before. I don't want to run myself into the ground, because in some ways I've ended up doing even more work. Coming up
I'm
with
sure we can all pour ourselves a glass of something to come and sit and blether.
Yeah, we'll definitely. I think we need to do something, but I'm quite looking forward in a way to kind of experiencing my own events, which I don't get to do. But it's interesting. It's interesting seeing how people in the industry are innovating, how they're changing, how they can balance what they're doing. Can they? I think it's inevitable. We will see some of the brands fall. I've seen some of the American companies amalgamate, since I'm going to liquidation. I've seen all sorts of things. And some people will change, and I think some of the people where this is their livelihood, they do this full time. I think some of them unfortunately will fall because they just can't. I think we'll see some of the more hobbyists, the people that kind of just do it on the side. I think some of them will potentially fall. We are in a very sort of saturated market, and some people who are kind of like in the middle that are maybe kind of taking those steps or have just started, or I think we'll see changes. I think we'll see further changes in the industry as a direct result of COVID-19. There's so many unknowns.
Just suck it and see is all.
There are so many unknowns, and I think what happened initially is so many people reached towards the arts as a way of coping, as a way of escapism, and yet some of the first big sort of casualties of this are the arts. It's the theatres, it's the venues. There's been a lot in the last few days about theatres and what they're doing, and I've been looking quite closely at what the Millennium Ensemble, for example, how they're socially distancing in the theatres. They've actually physically taken out seats ready to go, but they're very heavily state funded theatre and classical music, within Germany, because it's such a big part of the culture. We don't have that same infrastructure. So how do you innovate? How do you change? And it's a frightening time, but I've said for a long time, collaboration is so important in what we do, and I think we should be all working together. I'm surprised actually with everything that's been going on, because I do watch a lot of podcasts, and maybe it's just podcasts I'm watching. I haven't really seen anybody doing interviews like you're doing at the minute, unless it's part of their normal format, like Christie, for example.
Well, I was thinking about people feeling isolated. And I had been chatting to Sylvia with Cherries on Top, and she'd actually prompted me and said, why haven't you posted for so long? And we had a conversation about me just having had a period of no mojo, couldn't motivate myself to get in front of a camera. Was knitting.
Creative burnout is a real thing.
Yeah, producing everything else quite happily. But just that bit, I just could not be bothered. And I thought, that's silly. And Ian had to record something for school, so his mum had asked for a little bit of help with that. So I helped him. And I thought, well, all the equipment's out anyway. Let's just get it done. And I thought, right, I'm going to go back to Sylvia and say, do you want to have a chat? And I thought, well, who else would I chat to? Because it isn't things like this, conversations are the bread and butter of the entire craft industry. It's part of that festival meet up and knit and natter.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'd say we're all about 1 degree removed in this industry, which is quite unlike some others. It's really quite unique in some ways, and it doesn't always come out. I think some of us keep kind of our sources kind of secret, just you don't want to be kind of name dropping all the time. We've all got personal lives as well, and there are some real celebrities in what we're doing, but I think we all have access to one another in between what we do. And I think what you're doing, I mean, I'm delighted that you've reached out and said, do you want to come on and have a blether? I mean, I'm always up for blether. But yeah, I'm surprised I haven't seen more collaboration and more interaction on a one-to-one level.
Maybe we'll create something
like this. I'd love to see more than this. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I mean, I think this is going to go on for a longer time. I think we're certainly in the UK, we are going to see a second wave of it. I think particularly in winter.
I think you're right.
And I think, you've then got seasonal affective disorder on top of that will also impact on people's mental health. So I would see, I want everybody in this industry to succeed. And it is very much sort of community focused. I know that it was lovely seeing sort of various sort of knit and natters all kind of meeting up and sort of crafting groups meeting up and going virtual. And it's brilliant to see that. But I'd love to see more interaction, kind of like this wee interviews, we just sort of chats and blethers. I think Gemma, the Project Bag, she recently celebrated, I think it was episode 40, and she brought in Sparkle Julia. And again, that's someone she's kind of brought on a friend, somebody who lives local but she can't meet up with. Brilliant chemistry between the two of them. And bring that together. I'd like to see.
Super. I mean, I'm looking forward to everything. The one thing that I'm very conscious of is that over the next 6 or 8 weeks, you're going to have piles of update information that you're going to be wanting to get out to folk. So I want to come back to you in about 3 or 4 weeks' time and pick your brain for what's changed, what's new. Because
I think maybe, I don't know, I'd like to think I'm approachable, and I think some people do, but then I think sometimes other people go, oh, director, because I put my official title on. And more than anything, that wasn't a title that I started using because I was going to various sort of not so much our industry things, but business sort of things. They're looking at you and what do you do? Yeah. And I'm aware that I look younger than me, I'm 39, but I'm aware that I kind of look a bit younger than that. And being female and going into sort of very sort of male-dominated spaces and maybe not dressing as conservatively and kind of refusing to a certain extent, because that's not me, and that's not how you break down and bring in change. But yeah. I'm a director of something. I'm like top dog. That's me. And as soon as you go, that's rather than I'm such and such. I found the way that people were talking to me and interacting with me was different there. But I am approachable. The email address is there in the website. It generally comes through to me anyway, unless I'm really stowed under with work. And I've got volunteers like yourself who kind of come in and answer the easy stuff, general stuff, and sort of signpost to other information. I'm there in the direct messages and the social media, and I'm generally pretty quick at kind of getting back. So I'd like to think that I'm approachable. I'm there for certain sort of things of advice, because I want to share that information, but at the same time I've invested a lot of time in learning what I've done and getting where I've gotten as well. I'm not just about to. In some ways, I think I watched somebody and they were talking. They do sort of project bags and their own shop, and they do a lot of blogging things, and people were coming and asking, well, where do you get your such and such from? And she went, the greatest of respects, it's kind of business sensitive information to a point. I've spent a long time researching, finding, and if this is what you want, then you need to invest that time in it yourself too. But I like things like introductions to people, if I know, or or do you know somebody who's good at this or is such and such at that. I love that part of my job. I love seeing these sort of big creative collaborations that come out of it, and I do think really the only way that we're going to get through this as an industry is to collaborate more.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
So anyone wants to talk to me or interview me or have a blether or is maybe looking for somebody who's good at something in our field and doesn't really know where to go, hit me up. If I can't help, yeah, use my brain. I think what's going to happen, certain things are evolving, but I am going to have a lot more time on my hands in this coming year. Please don't feel that I'm not approachable because of what I do. Generally at the festival, I'm not, because I'm just, the walkie-talkies on, the mobile phones going off. It's a bit crazy, but just reach.
Well, I said we would chat for 10 or 15 minutes. We've done 45. So I'm going to cut us off there because it'll be too long otherwise. Thank you so much for having a blether this afternoon. We don't blether as often as we sometimes used to, and I think it's just because there's so many other things get in the way. It's just life.
It is, but isn't it kind of joyous that, sometimes people, we recognise, something's obviously going on, whether that's professional, personal or whatever. It's not an intentional thing. And we'll come back organically when the time's right.
Exactly.
I'm delighted that you reached out. It has been good to have a blether.
It has been nice.
Sort of like COVID festival realness.
We're not allowed to say that word. It'll bring, but if you say it 3 times, it comes back.
Does it now? Yeah, it's tough. I think kind of just sort of wrapping up. Collaboration is what's going to kind of get through us. So I kind of just urge everyone in our industry, or who's thinking about, send that private message, send that email, and look about, your time's of greatest crisis can sometimes be the starting point for something incredibly wonderful, where your life just takes you somewhere completely different. I mean, I didn't see myself as being as organising a festival. Look at me now, you think things are changing, but we're all going to be okay. Yeah.
And with that, I will see you soon. Keep well, Eva.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I'm back. So how was the blether with Eva? Did you enjoy it? I did. It was good fun. I've got another one recorded for the next podcast, and it's an international one, and I'm not going to tell you who it is. I'm going to leave that as a teaser, but I'll tell you that it's an international indie dyer, and leave it at that. So, finished objects. Well, there have been a few. There were 12 baby hats. Yeah, 12 baby hats. Nothing to do with Sarah. Someone sent me an appeal post on Facebook from the Golspie community midwives who had run out of hats for newborns. Some folk have their own, some don't have any, and hats for newbies are always in demand, and they had run out. So they put an appeal on Facebook and hoped for the best. I got a copy of the appeal and I passed it on to the knitters at my Messy Nessie knitting class in Thurso. Now, because it's running online at the moment, there are folk from Thurso in Caithness. We have one regular attendee, and that's Faye Howard from the local yard store Wool for You in Aberdeen, who pops in and joins us for a knit and a blether. She's been incredibly busy this week because of the shop reopening. I hope that's gone well for her. We have Amy Henderson, who lives in Shetland, and Amy joins us by Zoom from Shetland and knits along with us. She's a new knitter. She learned to knit when she was a tiny kid, and she started again 6 months ago, and she's just finished her own little bits of design work for a baby hat, mitts and socks, which are absolutely gorgeous. I'm really, really proud of the work that she's done over the last few months. And one of my knitters, who learned to knit about 4 or 5 weeks ago, Claire Hull, decided that although she's working on an adult beanie, she would try a baby hat. And it's a simple garter stitch baby hat, and she knitted it with just verbal instructions which she wrote down on a notepad. Oh, pardon me. A little bit of help online in a class, and in 3-4 days she had finished her baby hat, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and went off with everybody else's. In total there were 63 hats. Oh, I nearly forgot, someone else who comes and joins the knitting class is Marion Frenga from Bonn in Germany, who's one of my test knitters. So she's been dipping in for a blether and a knit or a spin, whatever she happens to be doing, and that's been great fun. And Marion's been knitting hats as well, so Marion and Amy are simply going to post them to Golspie, and I think that's absolutely incredible. In 7 days we had 63 hats. My son was taking his car for servicing in Inverness, and as he drove past the hospital he dropped them off. So we know they got there safely. We hope they're able to use them. They're in just about every size, thanks to Jill Tilt as well, another one of the class members who knitted away in the background and just appeared with a big bag of knitted hats. And Rosie Barter produced a bag of crocheted hats. It's just, a simple community appeal for something like that. And the folk who are involved with my class were amazing. Really, really proud of that. Photograph and a bit of video has been running while I've been blethering, so I hope you've enjoyed that. What else have I been up to? Well, just over a year ago, I was at last Perth Festival of Yarn. I had balled up and decided that I needed a sample of the Comet Shawl for my stall. Comet Shawl is a pattern that I published about 3 years ago, and the original Comet Shawl that was used for the photographs for the pattern actually went to my tech editor for the pattern, Sarah Wilkinson, what am I saying? Sarah Donaldson. Two Sarahs, wrong one. And Sarah Donaldson did the editing and would not take any payment for it, so she got the prototype scarf, prototype shawl as a thank you, and I know she loves it because I've seen her wearing it. But there were two versions of the pattern written, a straight one and a slightly amended extra lacy one. So I thought I'm going to do a version of the extra lacy one, and I had this in a dark teal. So I balled it up last year, started knitting it, came home from the festival and forgot to put it away in a bag. Wondered where I'd put my 4.5mm pins because I wanted to start this next shawl, and then I remembered, so I went looking for them and it wasn't quite complete, so I finished it off. So there we go. This lovely teal lacy comet shawl, a summer weight cotton shawl. Unfortunately, I don't get to use it for anything, although it might make an interesting holy face covering. But it's light, it's lovely, it does a nice wrap round and a nice drape on the neck. It's teardrop shaped, patterns on Ravelry if anybody fancies a go at it. And it's not a long knit, you know. The original was knitted in Arden weight yarn. This was knitted on the same size pins, but with, and look, I think this is absolutely wonderful. The big teardrop on the bottom works really, really well. One of the folk in my class actually knitted this for themselves in double knitting, and it came out beautifully, so I'm really happy with that. Mrs. Glenn has snaffled this one, so I don't know if I'll actually get to display it on my stall, or if I'm going to have to hunt backwards and forwards for it, because she's put it in her stash. And the last time I was talking to you, I'd actually started to knit a Katie's kit, which is this year's Shetland Wool Week hat. And I hadn't done any stranded colour work for ages, and it was the inspiration for starting that sweat. So I had all this wool that I'd picked up in Shetland last year that I hadn't started to use. So I knitted Katie's kit, and it was great fun to knit. It's a lovely evening and a bit project. I love the crown. It comes beautifully in as a hexagonal star. You know, absolutely wonderful. Not having done any stranded colour work for ages, actually I astonished myself because the floats actually look quite respectable, which is unusual for me. I'm not because I don't do a lot. I thought it would be a wee bit of a nightmare. Now hats like this can be a bit in the tight side, and they don't always have a lot of stretch. The one thing I did change, tubular cast on, just because I like it to be a wee bit stretchy. But for me, I like my hats just a wee bit baggy. So I'm delighted with this. It's big, it's baggy, it's woolly, it's warm. So this is mine. I have started another one with a slightly darker background because I had plenty of the other colours left. So it's sitting under my desk at the moment, and it's just been put aside because I want to get this shawl run at the same time as the one Jennifer's doing. I want to try and get that sweater finished before we get to autumn weather. And that's been me. Grandsons are in brilliant nick. They're as mad as hatters as usual. Son's in a good mood. He traded in his old car and picked up a newer one this week. Took his car for servicing, as I said earlier. Bought a new car. Can't complain, I've done that myself. When you get to the stage that you start to think the cost of servicing and repairs is not economical over the course of the year, allowing for where we live and the shortage of public transport this far north, then a reliable car becomes extremely important. So Ali updated his car, and that's really been it. It's been an exciting couple of weeks since I last spoke to you. There's been plenty happening. There's been plenty knitting, and I hope. Oh, and the one other thing, some of you would have seen my Instagram live. The fleeces that I'd taken to the fleeces and the alpaca fleece that I had taken to the mill in March are back, and the first couple of samples are knitted, just like sort of tension square test squares. And the alpaca and rose yarn is out of this world. There's a wool, alpaca and rose sock yarn. It's just ecru, it's just natural, undyed, ready for folk to do anything they want with it. There's a sample of it knitted up. It's going to be wonderful. I'm going to get a quick pair of socks done using that just to let me see how they wear. I've used the rose to replace viscose or nylon as the extra strength giving fibre. Did a little bit of background reading about the tensile strength and wearability of the fibre, and it looks as if it should do the job that I want. So it's a nice blend. It's lovely knit. It feels lovely knitted up straight from the mill, still with a little bit of machine oil and things on the cone. I'm just going to skein it up and send it out that way. When you're knitting, it feels a little bit crinkly, and the minute you wash it, it just opens up and blooms. Oh my god, it's wonderful. So that'll be there. There's some lovely dark grey, almost black Shetland and alpaca, which I'm really happy with. There's a lovely caramel alpaca and rose, and there's just 500 grams of a silver grey alpaca and rose. Now, two of my class knitters who were dropping off hats saw the grey and the other one, because I had them sitting in the porch so they could have a look at them, and they both ordered yarn instantly. The minute they touched it, they said, I want some. So the shawl that Jennifer's knitting is using those two yarns, and Fiona Sutherland, who also knitted a pile of hats, despite having a really painful time with sort of arthritis in her hands, she persevered through some hats. Well done, Fiona. It's been a good couple of weeks, and I'm really, really happy. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. That's everything I've got for you. I'll just waffle if I keep going. Don't need to fill the podcast with waffle. Get in touch. Tell me what you're up to. Send me your projects either on Ravelry or DM them to me or anything else that you fancy. If you want to come and join the knitting group on a Tuesday night or a Thursday night at 7 PM British Summer Time, please let me know in private message and I'll send you login details for our Zoom room and come and join us. You need to be registered with Zoom in order to get in. You'll come to a waiting room, I'll see you there and let you in. Nice and simple, standard Zoom security. We'd love to have some of you pop in and say hi. And I think that's everything. So if you've enjoyed the video, same as every other YouTuber, to keep YouTube promoting the videos for us, hit the like button, subscribe so that you don't miss any, and click on the bell notification icon to make sure you get YouTube lets you know when I post a new video. It'll be nice to get the next one done, keep you all up to date, and I hope to see you all again soon. Until then, keep safe, keep happy, keep knitting. Cheerio.